full coverage make me look cakey? Is my undertone neutral or is it cool? We get it. Finding the right foundation is hard. But with Il Makiage, it's easy to find your perfect match online, customized for your unique skin tone and coverage needs. Plus, with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. With over 600,000 five-star reviews, this best-selling foundation is going viral for a reason. Take the Power Match quiz now at ilmakiage.com/quiz. ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Geico makes it easy to get affordable renter's insurance in as little as 90 seconds. That way, you have more energy for harder things, like the laundry. Why is it so difficult to fold clothes? They just end up wrinkly anyway, or on the floor in a pile that just sits there, taunting you. But with renter's insurance through Geico, at least you know that those clothes and the other things you love are covered. Get more with Geico.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
I got to Dublin Airport Hotel where the team were. So I'm queuing up to check in, and I was so thrilled myself. There I am, and he's kind of looking at me, and I nod. It's the first time, this is it. I've arrived now, the big time. I'm going to play for my country. This is the great Jack Charlton. And he took his glasses and he stopped the press. He said, hang on a minute. He said, Morris. And Morris said it was a number 2. And he said, Morris, we haven't picked him, have we? And I was like,
You know, Mary, leadership is something we've talked about a lot on this podcast, and I know it's something that we're both very interested in. We've had wonderful conversations about what makes a good leader, whether it's on the pitch, in politics or in business. And I think we both agree it's not about success for oneself. It's about bringing out the best in others and seeing possibilities where others see challenges and also leaving a lasting impact. Do you think?
That's exactly right. I think you're spot on. Today's guest, of course, is someone who's left a mark in so many areas of life and has led in every sense of the word. He's been a towering figure in Irish football. I'm sitting here beside him and just looking up at him, sitting. I've got a crick in my neck. Not just for his skills and determination on the pitch or the fact that he is about 7 foot tall, but for his vision well beyond that, whether it's scoring crucial goals, captaining his country, working to reshape the future of Irish football. He has always been about more than just the game.
Starting off in his youth in Crumlin and then heading off at a very young age to Arsenal, Manchester City and Sunderland. And then on top of all of that, like those are kind of dream gigs, aren't they? Dream teams. And then becoming a national hero in a green jersey. His career has been extraordinary. But what's also impressive is what he's done since hanging up his boots. He's worked in football administration, in business, and has a real drive to improve opportunities for young players in Ireland.
We know him as a man of deep, deep passion for progress, a commitment to doing things the right way, in a way that makes us all so proud as Irish people that he's one of us. He has a belief in the power of sport to bring people together. And we're just thrilled to have him with us today.
We are. Do you recognise yourself in all that, Niall Quinn?
Grateful but mortified. Going a little bit red here.
And that's the Irish in you.
Niall, you're very welcome to Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations, and you're welcome to Allenwood. And it's not too far from where you live, sure it's not?
No, I'm in Straffan right now, so I know the area quite well. First got to know the area playing Gaelic football for Eadstown, coming down playing Junior B matches, and I'll always recall being told to, I brought 3 or 4 of the lads down, gave them a lift, being told to park the car just outside facing home in case things got rough after them. So anytime I passed through Allenwood, I remember that. But no, they were great times. I came home and settled in Kildare. Nobody wanted me in the soccer world. No League of Ireland club came in and offered me a kind of, I suppose, a nice retirement. Instead, I played for the local Gaelic football team, and it was brilliant because I got to know the whole county. We were travelling every week or so to play a game, and I had great teammates. So it was a new dressing room for me, but it had all the old characteristics of the dressing rooms I'd been in, if not better. And you develop a sense of character as a team. Your team character comes out, and we same highs and lows, just different league, different time, different sport, and great friends for life as a result from it. You know. And,
how did you morph from that? Then you have a very familiar background, don't you? For most of us, your background is in GAA, a strong GAA background. But what we all know you for, of course, is the sheer excellence of your career in soccer.
Well, that's kind of you. I suppose Gaelic football and hurling were my sports growing up, and eventually when the ban was lifted, it was about 73 by the time it was, you know, starting to be okay to play soccer, as everybody knew it then. There was street leagues on. I was 7 years of age. I was born in 66, and I put my name down. My mother let me put my name down for the street leagues. So, look, we won't tell your father just yet.
Would he have been a staunch man?
Yeah. Well, I think he... as it turned out, it all panned out really nicely, and he didn't say a lot when he found out I was playing, and it took quite a while for him to find out. We did quite well. I was picked for Derby County, who were the league winners in England that year, so they were the name of the street team that I was playing for in Crumlin, and we went all the way. Mr. Carr was my manager. I remember him well, and we won, and then that same time, you know, the 73 Cup final was on, and Sunderland beat Leeds, which was a huge shock. And I remember the red football. So, you know, we were seeing colour TV as well. And there was this glamorous thing called soccer, and we were playing it on the streets all the time, and every kid had their favourite team. Leeds was huge then amongst all of the Irish kids. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I carried on playing for the GAA club, and I moved the soccer around it as I went to play with Manortown United. I was still playing with Robert Emmett. I was playing out of my age group in all of the various sports, whether it was Gaelic football, hurling or soccer. And,
is it true that you were playing under 12s when you were 8?
Yeah, and I was tall enough. You gave me the intro there.
Yeah, exactly.
I looked 12. But I played in goal, would you believe, for the first 3 years. And life is full of sliding door moments, as you know, and we'll never get away from that. But sometimes the wonder of it all, and particularly for me, when I look back at the amazement of playing in goal for 3 years in your first 3 years in soccer, playing Gaelic football, playing hurling, and you know, only playing soccer when there was no hurling match. Because particularly by the time I became a teenager, and I really had to balance how it all worked. And I also played my football, my soccer at centre back, so I was a defender. And we had a school coach in Drimna Castle, CBS, where I went. We would go on to win the All Ireland in 1983. But he was the only coach who ever said to me, I think you're going to be a great striker and I'm going to play you up front. Now, we played a game in Tulka Park, Leinster College's final, and my dad came. It was a big thing for the school. And the Arsenal scout came to see a player from Ballymun Comprehensive on the other side. Now, if I had a hurling game that night, I probably wouldn't have been able to play because I was playing, you know, at a high level of hurling. But also, back, you know, 2 months earlier, if the school coach didn't say, I want you to play centre forward, I wouldn't have gone. Yeah. A lot of things that got me to that. We were 1-0 down in injury time in the quarter-final against Castleknock College, and a kid come on, Ian Walsh was his name, and he scored 2 goals. He never got another kick again in the whole year.
He didn't need to.
But he got 2 goals. To this day, he's still known as Ian Rush in our locality. And that got us to the final. The scout came to watch somebody else. I play well in the final, scored a couple of goals. And by September, I'm a trainee at Arsenal, starting a career in football.
Well, before we move on to you moving to London for Arsenal, I'm just thinking, you said there that your dad was at the soccer match. And I mean, your father won 2 minor hurling medals, All-Ireland medals for Tipperary. Yeah. It must have been a bit of an adjustment for him.
Well, it wasn't, in a way. He was a quiet man, but he was delighted just to see me playing sport. And, you know, he he just didn't say a lot about the soccer, you know.
Didn't he compare it to the Angelus?
That was a little bit later, actually. So I made my debut unexpectedly for Arsenal. I was to go on loan to Port Vale, and I come in for training on Wednesday. No internet then. You come in for training, and after training I was called in and said, you're developing quite nicely. We're sending you off to Port Vale. You're going to go off and play in the 4th Division. It's going to toughen you up. It's going to make a man out of you. And when you come back in a couple of months, you may be able to knock on the door for a spot here at Arsenal. So a lovely man, John Rudge, is the manager of Port Vale. He's going to look after you. So that was on the Wednesday. I went home and rang everybody, told them I was going. So on the Thursday, I headed off to Port Vale, and I got met at the train station. I didn't know where Port Vale was, so it's near Stoke in the Potteries, for those who don't either. And John Rudge met me and said, "You have to go home. There's been an injury." Because I didn't go on the Wednesday. It wasn't like that. You had to go to a travel agent to get a ticket for the train.
Back those days.
So I came straight back, went into training on the Friday, trained with the reserves on the Friday, but another striker got injured in training on the Friday. So Paul Marner was a great striker, Tony Woodcock, 2 of them playing with England, both of them out of the game on Saturday. So I was told, you'll go back to Port Vale on Monday, you're just coming in case anything else happens. And my name was put in pencil at the bottom of the list of players. Now, there was only one sub in those days, and there was 16 names, and I was number 17 in pencil to meet the next day for the Liverpool game. And interestingly, the Liverpool game was the first ever live top-flight game shown in Europe, in England. So this was a big exposure game. And so, anyway, to cut a long story short, I had never been in the first team dressing room before. So when the team meeting was called, I snuck in as near to the door to get out. I could barely breathe being in there with all these great players who I hadn't even trained with, per se. And Don Howe was the coach at the time, and he named the team, and he said, "We have a debut today. I want to put your hands together. Big Niall's going to play today." And that was it. That was at quarter to 2. The match was at 3. And I can remember going out onto the pitch, seeing all these great Liverpool players, Rush, who I mentioned, Dalglish, Whelan, Lawrence and Hansen. They had the golden team, and I was there, my God, I'm playing against these guys today. I scored a goal after 20 minutes and my career took off.
Wow.
And
I feel there's an angel up there looking after you.
Could well be. I think it's my grandmother. My mother's mother always said she'd look after me. But the interesting thing, the silly thing was, having meant to be up to Port Vale to toughen up and play in the 4th Division, by the Wednesday, Thursday, fan mail was coming in to me. In those days, there was no social media. It was all letters from all over Europe. So nobody I didn't need one ticket for the game because nobody was expecting me to be playing, etc. The second week we were away at Man United at Old Trafford. So we're now playing full house at Old Trafford. Wow. We beat them. Wow. So now this thing is easy. My third game is Spurs at home. And that's when my dad came for the first time to see me play. And I left him down at the halfway line in what was called the halfway line, which was the players' lounge. And I said, "I'll see you in there after the match." And there was an Irish woman behind the bar, and I said, "Now make sure
look after him.
Don't drink too much." That real Irish thing as you do. Anyway, I went into him after the game, and it was a draw. It wasn't the best performance. We got a draw out of it, and I went into him and just kind of said, "Well, what do you think? Do you enjoy it?" And he went, "It was like 90 minutes of the Angelus." So that, I think, sums up everything about... He was delighted to see me do what I was doing, but for him...
he wasn't enthralled. A bit like Micheál. Do you remember Micheál Murray's famous comment about soccer, that it was much ado about nothing to nothing? That would be a perfect fit for your draw.
That's exactly it. And the thing about it was, if it had been a hurling match, oh my God, he wouldn't have slept.
I know.
He was so excited. Hurling was his whole thing. And he, as kids, he used to bring us all around the country. I've been to county finals between clubs in Limerick and Cork, and Tipperary. Obviously, he was a Tipperary man, but very proud Tipperary hurling man. And it's as I say, a few sliding door moments. So me playing a different sport.
Arsenal. What was it like for, say, your mum when you were going off to Arsenal?
You were only 16.
I was 16, hadn't turned 17, and
you had to remove yourself from school, presumably.
Yeah, my mother was a teacher as well, and my sister was a teacher. She'd qualified at the time, and so it was kind of, can you not wait till you do your leaving, And I was hoping to God Arsenal would say, no, you have to come now, because of the leaving. Oh my God, because I was playing so much sport, Just to give you a kind of example, a couple of years earlier, under 14 for the school, Gaelic football, hurling and soccer, but I also played under 16 and under 18. So I was being called out of class all the time to play matches. I was playing matches at the weekend, whether it was hurling, whatever, Gaelic football, soccer. And so by the time this opportunity came and Arsenal wanted me, I was going, this is great now because I'm way behind in my studying. My mother is a teacher across the road in Walkinstown, and if I fail the leaving, this is going to look terrible on us. I tell you what, the best thing, if I just get out now and go to Arsenal, this is going to work out great for everyone. But I did promise that I would take A-levels, and Arsenal did promise they were going to give me the best tuition ever, and I could do English and history. They were the two subjects that I chose, and my mother let me go. And as well as that, as long as I was allowed to stay with my father's sister, my Aunt Ailish.
Oh, you didn't stay with strangers?
I didn't go into strangers the first year I was in Diggs. Now, it was a long way away. It was Twickenham, and I had to get up real early every morning to get to North London, then to get the coach full of all the gear that had to go out to the training ground. So I used to get the 6:20 bus, the 281 from Twickenham to Hounslow, get on the tube all the way across, go into Arsenal, get all the skips ready. The skips
you had jobs to do?
Oh, yeah, big jobs to do. And then,
what's a skip?
A skip is a big sort of container on wheels that you put all of the training kit into. But the laundry where it was washed every day and where you had to go and get it from to bring out to the training ground, which was an hour's journey in the bus, that was on the top of the roof almost at the old Highbury Arsenal Stadium. So no lifts. So you had to pull it up step by step on the wheel. And it was harder in the afternoon because you were going up the way, after the training session.
Like a workout.
But in the morning, you'd let it fly down, and you'd make sure as long as it didn't run out of control, you were fine. I've other memories of that time, coming back then in the afternoon from the training ground out at London Colney, getting all the kit back up there, and, talk about sports science and diet. We were handed vouchers for the fish and chip shop, where you got a Coke. Oh, am I allowed to say that?
Keep going. Yeah.
I got a Coke and fish and chips, or burger and chips if you wanted burger and chips. And you then have that in around the chipper, and then you make your way back and you train in the afternoon then about 3:30. And like the lads burping, as you're kind of running around. So I used to get the tube back then to Hounslow, which was about 5 or 6 stops short of the airport. But the amount of times I woke up at the airport, just shattered, tired, and
yeah.
I imagine that A-level English and history didn't really feature large then.
It didn't last long. But do you know who was teaching me English? She went on to have a political life. Kate Hoey. Who became Minister of Sport. Yes, for Bangor.
She's a Labour Party person.
So she was my teacher in London University, and we always kind of got on really well. But she was great. She put a programme in place for footballers like me who, had difficulty in we might have games on Tuesday night when lectures were on, etc.
Yeah.
But anyway, I found the bookies and the snooker hall as the best alternative to going into university to Kate. But she tried hard to reel me in. I broke away from it, and it was only, I think, just during the pandemic that I decided I better pay my mother back. She was 91 at the time, and I said, right, I'll go back and do this thing. And I just did history. I just did a MA in Irish Revolutionary History. So
where did you do that? DCU.
I did it in DCU, and now you might think I'm exaggerating. I'm not. You mentioned a lot of things that I supposedly have done at the start of this program. That is the most fulfilling thing I have done, and it throws the question. I beg myself the question. Jeepers, what if you had of maybe stuck at it, and where could you have brought it to? I would have loved to have spent more time exploring the things that make me tick, and.
History is definitely one of them.
History is one of them. Yeah, I loved history, always did. And I suppose I've got memories of my older sister, bringing in albums. When we only had record players then. She'd been at the Dandelion in town, and she'd have bought albums to support the hunger strikers and stuff. This is what was going on in Dublin in '81 before I went to England. And so I had all of these rebel songs, and I had this Irishness in me, but I didn't know where it all came from or what the whole story was. Really, I was just shouting with the crowd, and to go back then and to sort of get to the bottom of everything that I didn't know, and to understand Irish history more, it's been a great revelation. Now, I did my thesis, my final year I did a thesis on Oscar Traynor.
There's the ban.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. He was a man who fought really hard to lift the ban. He was the great soccer man. That's why I did the thesis on him.
Really?
Mary, yeah. And he was incredible in my opinion. Obviously being the rebel he was, being the politician he was, and being a soccerite in Ireland at that time against the grain on everything. And hence he wasn't, in my opinion, he was left in the footnotes of history. But one of the great things about doing the thesis on somebody like that was, you know, I kind of learned to be more rounded in how I viewed Irish history, and I get a great kick out of discovering new parts of our, I suppose, our revolution, and understanding that it wasn't the way we were told in secondary school in early 1980s Ireland. Now, there was a bit of a publicity about me doing that, and I met the Trainer family, and I met them about 4 weeks after I needed them for my thesis. It was too late. Way too late. But they're a great family, and so I would love if the Trainer family and I can come together. We keep talking about it, but I would love one day if I could just slow down a little bit of everything else I do and get in and give that man the book.
The book that he was doing.
Well, I'd love to be involved in it in some way, but I hope I'm explaining how much of a passion the whole thing became.
Yeah, but then as well as that, though, we can't forget, Niall, the role model that you've been, even though you didn't, do the education thing when you were young, the role model that you've been for young people in Ireland by having that passion for sport and by going away and making a success in Arsenal, Manchester City and Sunderland.
And for older people too, that education is always there.
Yeah.
It's not something that belongs to youngsters.
Well, that's absolutely right. And I she'll kill me now for telling you this now, but my wife saw me get an award from the Open University. They gave me a lovely award for outstanding contribution to sport. This is before I went back to college. And she sat in the audience in Manchester, and the university they were conferring, if that's the right word, each recipient of their award. But there was so few of them, everybody got to speak. So it wasn't like, the way you see classrooms full come through in DCU, UCD, and you shake hands. Well, there was only a small number, and they all got to speak and tell their story. And I didn't know, because I'm sitting up there in lovely robes, getting my freebie, as Gillian calls it, and so I'm there, and everybody's walking by, and I'm nodding. And there were great stories, harrowing stories, triumph over adversity, so much. So it was brilliant, and I know I was thrilled by it. So much so, Gillian was in the crowd, started crying, and signed up the next day to go back to college, because she'd left school at 14. Whoa. So in our days, you remember, she didn't even have the intercert.
Yeah.
So she had to go back on a pathway to get back, and she's in her final year now of a PhD.
Oh,
yeah, so the whole thing.
What's her subject?
So she's doing her PhD on the career transition and the effect of footballers' marriages when players quit.
Ah,
so
she's got it from the source.
But she had a lot to work on, all right.
You mentioned Gillian. Tell us about when you met her first.
Well,
you were both fairly young.
I first met Gillian. We'd qualified for the World Cup in 1990, and Ballygown were the drinks company. They were our water supplier in the World Cup, and they had a shoot at Dalymount Park. And Gillian was modelling at the time. She was 18 years of age, and she was picked to come and take photographs with the team, and I was picked to be the one that worked for Ballygown. And it didn't really happen. I was in my kit. We had just trained. She was there, and I was trying hard to I don't know, make some kind of impression. Didn't really work. Then we had the World Cup, and then a couple of months after the World Cup, we had the motor show. Do you remember the motor show? Used to be on
yes.
Wasn't it a big thing? Brilliant. I can't believe that disappeared. Huge. It was massive. And so Arnold O'Byrne and Opal had sponsored the Irish team. And I was asked back, and Dave O'Leary, we were asked back to come and go at the stand for Opal during this big launch that they were doing in the motor show. And Gillian was the model that Opal had picked to also be there.
Serendipity, wasn't it?
Serendipity. And so Dave and I, there was a car leaving at 6 o'clock to bring us back out to the airport to go back to the UK. We were kind of leaving the stand, and I asked Gillian to go for a drink, and she said, yeah, I'll go for one. So we went to the Horse Show House. I told Dave to make his own way to the airport in the car. I'll see him there later. Anyway, we ended up in the Manhattan. I don't know if you remember the Manhattan, at about 2 or 3 in the morning. It was kind of a neat place, not quite as salubrious as Gigs at the time or the Jury's Dock. This was a less salubrious place. Auntie May's, it was known as Auntie May's. And I brought her in for the bite to eat there after all the pubs we visited. Told her the house white was a speciality here. And she ordered the house white, and it was a bottle of milk. So that'll tell you the kind of place it was. And anyway, she got her taxi home. I went back to my mother, who was mortified. What are you doing? She was really cross. My God, what will the neighbours say? You should be back at your club. And she got me out to the airport a few hours later. I got a flight back and made training by the skin of my teeth. Wow. So that's how we met. And and for a week,
you were hooked by then, it sounds.
I kind of was. And then she obviously I had her number and rang for about a week, and there was no response, no answer, and I just thought she'd give me a duff number. Like that's so bad.
You're being dusted.
But it turns out her gran had passed away, and they were all at the funeral for the whole week. So she rang about a week later and came over for Christmas for a game that around the Christmas period. We were playing Everton. Friends of mine collected her, and she came to the game, and then we had a kind of a couple of days together, and then I was coming home every weekend, you know, the way the things at work, spending all my money on airfares. And it went from there then quite quickly. And we had some great times in Manchester. We were back there recently at a funeral, sadly. Tony Buck, one of the great Man City legends, who we knew well. And Gillian came as well to pay her respects. And we kind of had a little drive down to see our old apartment, all the different things where Aisling would have gone to nursery school, our daughter. So we left there in 96. So that's what...
How long were you married?
We got married in 92, got engaged in 91, had our first date in October 90, really, but although had met, obviously, before the World Cup. 33
years or thereabouts?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
then she has plenty to work on for her thesis, hasn't she?
Yeah, she has. And, obviously the experience we have with other players and teammates and, people that I would have thought their marriages were a lot stronger than ours, and didn't work out for them. And kind of add it all up and put it together, and you find that there's and now she'd give you the exact figures, but I think the data suggests that the numbers of footballers who are divorced within 3 years is chronically high to any other industry. Yeah, and
you can imagine there must be, if you're at that level, international soccer, and then you're not.
Yeah, that's a great point. The light's no longer shining on you.
Like the fall off the edge of the cliff must be kind of scary. You're lucky the two of you are both students.
Well, we are now.
You're students in the house together.
I had a good go at feeling sorry for myself, Mary, in that period. I had a year or two now looking back, and it wasn't great at all. And in fairness to Gillian, she recognised it, and look, she gave it back as good. Like and I don't know how close we came to actually splitting up. I let her. She'd know more about that than me.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
This episode is sponsored by Boost Mobile.
It's James and Fuhad from Shits and Geeks podcast, and we're here to talk about Boost Mobile, the newest 5G network in the country.
With compelling deals for new lines, Boost Mobile makes it easy to switch today.
Boost Mobile's new network delivers customers the speed and service they'd expect from the big three, plus groundbreaking benefits you'd only get from a true challenger in the industry.
These include letting people try the network risk-free for 30 days and offering a $25 per month unlimited plan that's guaranteed to never go up in price. They have blazing fast 5G and plans for all the latest devices. Visit your nearest Boost Mobile store and find us online at boostmobile.com.
When you think of skyrocketing brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, it's easy to credit their success to great products, sleek branding, and brilliant marketing. But here's the overlooked secret. The real magic lies in the engine behind the scenes, the business powering their business. For millions of brands, that engine is Shopify, making selling seamless for them and shopping effortless for us. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Aloe Yoga uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/retail, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/retail to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/retail.
We were hopelessly prepared, or I was, certainly. I mean, I had agreed after the World Cup in 2002, the Sunderland chairman asked me, with the manager of Sunderland, Peter Reid, to become assistant manager, player coach, where I would play some games and coach. So I was starting a career of coaching. And 9 games in, the manager got sacked. And with that, a new manager came in who didn't want me, and that was it.
Okay.
So I was gone on...
It's very cruel.
That's exactly...
Yeah.
So I thought I was going on this world of coaching, and... My reaction, I reacted badly. I went home and said, right, Gillian, come on, you always wanted to go home to Ireland, we're going. And so we had a horse box full of our stuff within a week. And my career transition planning was to arrive back in Ireland. The Celtic Tiger was still in full fling. Everybody was going out every night of the week. And I thought, well, this is great. Like, here we are back in Ireland. Everyone knows me, and I can go out 4 or 5 nights a week. But slowly but surely, it was things were crumbling, and so I got my mojo back by going back to Sunderland about 3 years later. I did a bit of TV in the meantime, and I'll tell you a funny story about my TV. My first appearance with Sky. They kept ringing me and asking me to come, Jeff Shreves in particular, come on, just come. And I was so fed up with football there. I got really upset about how I was treated. I was back in Ireland, I was playing Gaelic football. I was living here in Kildare. I was socialising, not earning any money at all, but, feeling sorry for myself. And eventually I agreed to go to a game, and I did a game at Leicester. And it was a midweek game, and I was mortified. I remember getting there and just not wanting to be there. I didn't want anybody to see me. I had a bit of a hood on. I'll always remember then doing the game and not enjoying myself, going to a hotel beside the airport, a real naff hotel, getting up for the 6, 7 o'clock flight back from East Midlands. Gillian collecting me from the airport, because that was my step back, if you like, yes, from where I was. And she collected me at the airport, and I got in the car and she gave me a hug and she went, "You were brilliant, but don't read Twitter." So she was nothing if not honest. Okay, so and I went, okay, but then that was, I suppose, I placed that as the time when I started to come back and say, okay, I need to get things back here. But she'd tell you a far better story.
You mentioned there you weren't earning when you came back. How did you manage financially? Were you living off savings?
I would have been okay. We weren't big spenders per se. No. People say, "Oh, you had racehorse," but we had actually good horses, and we made money from horses. Sounds crazy now, but we'd done well with property as well. We were which
we'd been sensible with money.
We'd been sensible to that point. Our pension was strong, but we would have got exposed later to the crash, what have you. So we things had to readjust, but that was fine too, because I would say we're probably happier as a couple on the journey trying to get back into a good place than we were when we thought we were in this.
When you were there.
That so-called there. Which ultimately was a false place to be at all times, So it's an interesting sort of period after my career. And to the point now where I sometimes say, did I spend too long in the world of football? Did I miss out on something else? And that's a funny thing, should be very grateful for the way everything went. But a bit of me still says that, I gave 20 years as a player. I gave 6 years, on the administration side at Sunderland. And I gave probably 10, give or take, a bit of overlapping, doing TV.
As an analyst.
As an analyst,
pundit, as they call it, but an analyst.
But you've also said that, you had a privileged life and that you kind of abused it. Where does that thought come from?
Well,
Niall?
I see. One of the things I can paint this right back to when I was 14. I played junior men's hurling at 14 years of age. I was the goalkeeper, and we got to a final. And every Sunday we won for about 4 or 5 weeks in a row, and all the local people were coming. And after every win, the lads went back to the pub, at Perrystown, where I lived. So at 14 years of age, I was drinking pints of Smithwick's Shandy.
No way, really.
So, but in the pub, and I was I was almost the mascot of the team as well as the goalkeeper. And I had a great man playing in front of me, full back, Father Pat Doody, a Limerick man. He was a parish priest in Greenhills at the time. And our matches were always on a Sunday evening in the summer at about 6:30, and he did 5:30 Mass on the Sunday. And for 4 or 5 glorious weeks, Mass lasted about 12 minutes. He was brilliant. And he'd be down in the dressing room, come on, lads. And he was the most gentle, brilliant priest that you could have, but by gosh, put a hurley in his hand and watch things. And he was in front of me, and anything that came near me, he took the head off. And it was funny because he was at a retirement age. He was nearly 40. And I was 14, and there were others, like we had a young team other than that. But it was a great summer. It was a great summer in one way, and I'll remember those times. And I'm not giving out about it, but that's where I started to get fond of the drink, and that's where you say, okay, I can't help my mother not find out about this. All the different things that teenagers go through, and how
did you deal with that then, Niall, when you went to play with the big teams like Arsenal and Man City?
Well, you didn't have a lot of money in the early days, we never had much money at Arsenal, but there was a drinking culture once I got into the team. I remember I got into the team just before Christmas, and they had a Christmas players party, and everybody got drunk at the party, and that was lovely. Really enjoyed that. And then I'm in the first team, and there's another dude to go to, and you kind of get swept away. But I was quite lucky in one way in that I also had an Irish existence in London. I had Irish friends, and so I had a separate social life to the football or glamour, what would have been in the 80s wine bar stroke nightclub sort of run. But, you know, luckily for me, my sort of leaning was towards, you know, going to the Irish pub with the lads and then maybe onto the National or the Galtymore, or
the
you know,
Galtymore,
in Cricklewood. Maybe, you know, so I was lucky that my friends, I was always, I like to think I was always good at choosing my friends, and I had some brilliant friends to this day, Irish people, who I lean more towards. So I was socialising away. My club didn't see the social that was going on. The other guys were getting into a bit of trouble because the paparazzi in those days had started to come alive, and they were taking pictures of players going into places like Tramp nightclub. I don't even know where it is. You know, I was always invited, but no, you know, my thing was, now lads,
the Galtymore.
There's a fellow called Joe Dolan on. You're missing it. You're missing it. You know. So I was lucky in that I drank. I had a capacity to drink. You know, that's an awful thing. You know, people who are anti-drink now will be saying, "What's he saying?" I could actually have a few pints, and tomorrow wouldn't be so bad. You know, in fact,
wouldn't be dying.
Not at all. No, I don't think I've. You know. My wife said, how do you do this? You know, I don't get hangovers.
Hollow legs
maybe. But I'd also drink the drink that suits me, you know. And I think there's a bit of education to be done around drink, because I won't say the brand now, but red ale, to me, I could drink it the way I could drink water, and it would mean nothing to me tomorrow, but I'd also have an enjoyable time with it and loosen up a little bit. Not, you know, trying to encourage that for people. I'm just giving you my story. And I found, when the guys started moving on to shorts and talking about going to nightclubs, they were heading into trouble. You know, I was much better heading over on my Irish side, and it was the most enjoyable time. You know, it's very hard. Oh, you're meant to say, you know, the day your kids are born is the greatest thing ever, and it is, of course it is. But you know, if I'm being really honest and look at the fun I had in those immature years when you're in London, living on your own. I lived on my own within a year of going over there. Bought my first place at 18. And
you were able to buy a place?
I was able to, things were so easy to do then.
Did you buy a house or an apartment?
Look, it was called a studio. You had to pull the bed out of the wall, Mary, you know. And
still, it was yours.
It was mine, yeah. 29 ones by court.
Ladder.
Yeah, 29 ones by court, that's right. But, you know, I look back now, and the amount of times maybe I'd be getting up to go off and train, and there'd be like 2 or 3 bodies on the floor, like, you know, that was the kind of Irish way back then. And I'd do it maybe in their house another time. But I had a lovely time, and I stay in touch with most of those people. And yet, isn't it funny, with all the players I played with on the football side, I don't. No. So that kind of tells you I was happier in my Irish part of London life.
Just on that very subject, because your sense of Irish identity and connection is incredibly strong, and coming as you did from the hurling background, the GAA background, into English soccer, GB soccer, were you conscious of racism or anti-Irish stuff?
Look, bullying took place in every changing room then, at every age group, and you know, I found it very difficult. They were calling me Bomber.
Was that Northern Ireland?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's, you know, so you had the lads and the, you know, and there was, you know, you had to get on in the pack, and you know, there was 2 ways of doing it. You either fought a few lads and swung punches and tried to earn respect that way, or you laughed and waited for the next fella to come in that he'll get it, not me.
Oh, yes.
and that was the option I took, which isn't the right option, of course. It should never. But they were just the times that were in it. And, you know, I can remember, you know, various things, but I can remember one time, you know, the manager of the team, Terry Neal, who was also from Bangor in County Down. Terry came into the dressing room one day, and I was sweeping, I don't know, dirt off the floor. And he said, "How are you getting on?" I said, "I'm doing great. Thanks, boss. Just people have difficulty that, you know, with my language. They don't understand me." And he went, "What?" Of course, I didn't know. So I said it a second time. So come in here, and he called people in. No one understands a word I'm saying, like, you know. And it was only on the tube on the way home that I realised, oh my God, the whole club is laughing at me, you know. And I wanted to take a day off the next day, like, and pretend I was sick. So they were as an immature kid, they were the kind of things that I look back and I go, oh my God, I should have been wise enough to know all that, but I wasn't. And whatever way you want to look at it, you toughen up. In those days, you toughened up. And whether it was right or wrong, you did that. And when somebody else was getting it, you were relieved that it just wasn't you. So you weren't doing a lot about it. But then, you know, as I moved up the levels then and got up to the better dressing rooms in terms of the elite dressing room of the first team, it was a whole new ball game. You know, there was, you know, but you had the right to stand up then because you were achieving. And in many respects, then you know, as I said, particularly as I moved on in my career, Howard Kendall, who really got me going at Man City, and Peter Reid, who I had at Man City for a number of years, and then Sunderland, they almost had me as the guy in the squad who made sure everybody got home. You know, when we go on nights out. The sensible lad. But I was also the guy who never really felt tired enough to go home when I should either. So half the lads would be kind of nearly begging to go home. And I'd be going, oh, okay, we've another drink we can go for here. So I enjoyed my time.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't the consummate pro. But in those days, I think you didn't have to be. Not like now, where it's very, very different now. And you might think, gosh, that's an amazing thing to say. It's not. That's the culture that existed in elite soccer in those days. And I was lucky that the excesses that I would have gone to would have been in Irish pubs and Irish clubs. And that's if I was leaving somewhere at 3 o'clock in the morning, there'd be no paparazzi outside, you know, I don't know, the Galtymore or whatever, you know. And I was able to live my life that way. And even when I went to Manchester, you know, I would go to the Irish clubs instead of going out. And, you know, Gillian often says that when something comes up on telly, you never even brought me to the Hacienda, you know, because that was the big thing at the time where Oasis and all that was coming alive. And she went, no, where did you bring me? Big Tom, you know.
Big Tom is great.
Exactly. Well, that's what I said, Mary.
Tell us about Jackie Charlton as a manager. You have said that he was a bit of a father figure.
Yeah.
Sometimes he could be very grumpy, though, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could be a gruff man too. It was his way or the highway in many respects. But I remember the first time I met him, he rang and invited me in the squad, and I was thrilled. Actually, sorry, he didn't. He sent a letter, and it was signed, Jack Charlton, you've been picked for the squad. And I thought, wow. And the letter was sent to Arsenal, where I was at the time. It was in 1980. It was the summer of 86. And they were going off to Iceland for a tournament. And I'd been selected to go on this tournament. And I got to Dublin Airport Hotel where the team were. And in those days, there was no such thing as set press conferences in the studios. They nabbed the manager as he was walking in, checking in himself. So I'm queuing up to check in. I'd driven my car, my first car I'd driven at home in the boat for the summer. I had a Ford Capri with Go Fast stripes, you know, on the side, like, you know. And I didn't have furry dice, but it was something, it was bad enough. And I was so thrilled myself. There I am, you know, I started growing my hair long, you know, and I had the Chris Waddle haircut, you know. And I'd come in full of myself, and he's doing an impromptu kind of press conference just off the queue where I'm queuing up to check in. And he's kind of looking at me, and I nod. It's the first time I kind of nod. Wow. And I'm like, you know, this is it. I've arrived now at the big time. I'm going to play for my country. This is the great Jack Charlton. And he took his glasses and he stopped the press. He went, hang on a minute. He said, Morris. And Morris Setters was the number 2. And he said, Morris, we haven't picked him, have we? And I was like, you know, he went, I didn't know we picked him. Like, you know, and I was going, oh, geez, should I be with the under-21s? I started to panic really quick. Am I in the wrong place? Anyway, I went up to the room and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, my heart was kind of going, like, you know, I shouldn't even be here. And I think it was Frank's statement said, he's only winding you up, that's what he does, you know. And so I kind of went to the first training session, well, I'll show him. And I kicked everything in sight to show that, you know, that I should be there. And I was really hard. And he laughed, you know, he knew that he had got me sort of.
Psychological
and that was the opening
game.
salvo. And he called me Noel for 4 years. But that was fine too, because there was something funny about that. But then when I scored for him in the World Cup in 1990, and I started to be picked, because that was my first start in a what you call a competitive international. From then on, he knew my name. But he you know, he was a very funny man at times, but it really was his way or no way.
Would you have considered yourself close to him at the end?
I would have. I'd like to think that he cared. He said some nice things about me in interviews that he did, and. He came up to Sunderland to watch me play one time when he had retired. He said, I'd like to come up and see you play. And Jack, I'd love to do that. And I brought him into the Players' Lounge. Of course, I told all of the Sunderland lads, hey, my hero now is here. He's coming into the Players' Lounge afterwards. World Cup winner, did everything he can for Ireland. And I'm his favourite, like, you know, and, you know, he's coming to see it now. I want you all to be good to him. I'm going to introduce you all to him. So we won anyway. I forget who we played. We won. Come into the Players' Lounge afterwards, and all our players were there, and Jack was there, and I was introducing him. And Jack, just before I started to introduce him, Jack went, And he went, no, you were hopeless today. So all the lads started roaring, laughing at me. I built up this father figure as the man that had made me. And I was going, Jesus, I know. And I'm going, steady on, Jack. He went, no, you keep doing that thing where you run for the ball and you run around like a headless chicken. I can remember it now. And all the lads are killing themselves laughing. And of course, my ego as captain of Sunderland is just dropping all the way down. But he was great at that. He'd build you up, but he'd bring you down when he knew you needed bringing down. Yeah.
Coming in part 2 of this very special episode with Niall Quinn to commemorate 35 years since Italia 90.
I was at Arsenal going nowhere when we qualified and trying hard to get away because I couldn't get a game for Arsenal. And Jack said to me, if you don't play, I can't bring you. Jack called Gary to one side and we saw Gary remonstrating and crying. We thought something must have happened at home or what have you, but it turns out Jack was that ruthless.
My daughter, youngest daughter, who was then, 5? When Nelson Mandela came out, ooh, ah, Paul McGrath, and suddenly the whole crowd took up the chant.
When we talk about Saipan, 2002.
Not proud of anything that happened at that time. As a dressing room, we should have been stronger and not allowed it to go as far as it did. We really missed Roy Keane. Never shy about saying that. This is just one example, right? We arrived there. I work with my daughter. My daughter's the boss straight away. In the United States just now, but we will be bringing it home to Ireland very soon. If you're in the pub saying, why are the Irish team so poor now? There's your answer.
Part 2 of this very special interview with Niall Quinn is coming next Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof like Aloe or Allbirds or Skims, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and brilliant marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the business behind the business, making selling simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/try to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/try.